Welcome to Murder by Nature, where we discuss the darkness of true crime, unsolved disappearances, and chilling mysteries come to life. I'm your host, Jasmine Ramirez, and if you're brave enough to join us today, prepare for a journey into the unknown. Our references for today are Netflix, Lover, Stalker, Murder, A&E TV, People Magazine, Oxygen.com, Reddit, All That's Interesting, Court Listener, Daily Crime, The Cinemaholic, The Charlie Project, and the actual case files from this murder. In the spring of 2015, the case of Cari Farver took a new turn. It had been 2.5 years since anyone in Cari's family had seen her, and her unexpected absence continued to haunt them. Investigators Ryan Avis and Sergeant Demi Dodd were intrigued by the strange circumstances that surrounded her disappearance, and volunteered to take on the case. From the onset, Avis and Dodd were struck by the odd, coincidences that were happening. When they visited Cari's home, they found that it was preserved, still full of her clothes and her belongings. Her bank records revealed 2 transactions the day before she vanished in 2012, and there had been no activity since. For an adult to leave behind all of their possessions, abandon their finances, and sever every connection without a trace was far from normal. It just didn't add up. The investigators reached a chilling conclusion. They couldn't prove that Cari was alive. With no credible evidence to suggest otherwise, they decided to pivot this case to a death investigation. And if you remember, where we left off was exactly at this point. We have so much details that came in from part 1, and now we're going to dive into the rest of part 2. Now, to understand the complexities of this harassment claim, Avis and Dodd revisited the original case files. Back in 2013, during the initial investigation, both Dave and Lisa had consented to having the contents of their phones downloaded. Now armed with this data, they were going to enlist the help of an IT specialist and volunteer deputy, Tony. He wanted to trace the origins of all of the flood of emails and text messages that came through, because there was hundreds of thousands of them, and it plagued everyone involved. Now, if you remember, at the very beginning of this case, text after text after text after text came through, and now they had the data to follow all of this information up. The digital footprint was a labyrinth. The sender sent numerous text messages from various VPNs, fake accounts, making it almost nearly impossible to pinpoint their origin. But Tony was determined. He realized that he needed to crack this, and in order to do it, he needed something beyond the existing tools that was out there. So he created his own software and coded a system to narrow down the exclusive IP address. His breakthrough came when he traced this digital trail to a specific residence. And this home belonged to none other than Todd, a fellow county employee who worked directly underneath Tony. Now, this was an unexpected twist. The connection was about to get even stranger. No one anticipated that this was going to happen. And when questioned, Todd revealed that his on-again, off-again girlfriend had been living with him ever since her house burned down. That girlfriend? Liz. The pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place. Liz, the self-proclaimed victim of years of harassment, was now directly tied to the IP address that belonged to the harassing messages. The investigation was finally closing in on the truth, and it became very clear that Liz's role in the saga was far darker than anyone expected. In September of 2010, Liz and Todd met online. They quickly started what Todd believed was an exclusive relationship, and over the next 5 years, Todd became deeply involved in Liz's life. He supported her financially, helped with her bills, assisted in purchasing a car, welcomed her and her 2 children into his home, and even took a role of caring for her children. Todd trusted Liz until the cracks began to show. By January of 2013, Todd was drawn into a bizarre saga of Cari Farver. And when he began receiving these strange text messages, emails, the messages were basically saying Cari was the one messaging him, and she was claiming to be Liz's friend, and that Liz had given her Todd's contact information as an emergency contact. When Todd confronted Liz about this, she confirmed the story, reinforcing her connection to Cari, and in an unsettling and manipulative way. Todd kind of started piecing this together with the experience he was having with Liz, and then the investigators uncovering the disturbing patterns from 2012, beginning with Cari's sudden disappearance. On November 15th, 2012, Cari's employer received a text message from her cell phone. It stated that she was resigning from her job. The message included this kind of twist. Cari recommended Shauna as her replacement. Now, if you don't know, Shauna was Liz's legal name. Elizabeth was her middle name. And that same day, Liz filled out an online application with Cari's employer, making it clear that Liz was already positioned to take Cari's role. But the timeline grew even darker. The day after the resignation text, on November 16, 2012, Cari's debit card was used at 2 discount stores in Omaha to make purchases totaling nearly about $400. Among these items was a distinctive black and white floral shower curtain. Later note this for its chilling significance. On November 17th, another text message from Cari's phone was sent to her mother. This time, the message included a picture of a $5,000 check supposedly made out to Cari and signed by Liz. The text claimed that Cari had sold a bedroom set to Liz, and she wanted her mother to let her into her home to collect it. But she was a little suspicious about this. So Cari's mother contacted the police instead of giving Liz the bedroom set and letting her in the home. The investigation ramped up as police worked with Cari's cell phone provider to ping her phone in an effort to locate it. Early on November 18th, the phone signal pinged in a place of Omaha that was close to Liz's residence. But despite all the efforts to recover the phone, it was never found. Now, this chain of events tied Liz to kind of the situation. She had erratic behavior, she was manipulating things, and she was painting like this chilling picture. From inserting herself into Cari's job, to accessing Todd's devices, to sending messages disguised as Cari, Liz kind of wove this complicated, calculated web of deception. Back to present day, though. The investigation into Cari's disappearance and Liz's disturbing behavior kind of finally reached a breaking point. The IT specialist, Tony, had a breakthrough with the analysis of the extensive documents of the electronic devices. This revealed a shocking truth. Liz had been posting as Cari for years. She created a digital smokescreen that used proxies, VPNs, anything to obstruct her IP address, and made it nearly impossible to trace her online. Anything that was going to Liz, it was hard to find because it was pointed in 1,500 different locations. Now, even though she did this kind of confirmed what the police were thinking. She was being very deceptive, but it didn't answer the most pressing question. What happened to Cari? Now, they were determined to unravel the truth, and investigators revisited the data again. They unearthed a chilling piece of evidence, a photo of Cari's vehicle that was taken on Christmas Eve 2012. This was long after Cari had been seen alive. The discovery prompted a close investigation into the vehicle itself, and forensic analysis revealed a single fingerprint on a mint container in the center console. When matched, the fingerprint belonged to Liz. This placed her inside of Cari's car after her disappearance. This made a huge wave in this investigation. Now, the investigators knew that they needed to keep a close eye on Liz. The earlier altercation with Amy, during which Liz accused Amy of shooting her, provided just enough justification for surveillance. Now, as Liz began to spiral further, her desperation became more apparent when police placed a tracking device on her vehicle to monitor her movements, and it quickly revealed that Liz was circling Amy's home on a near-daily basis. It was clear Liz wasn't trying to intimidate Amy. She was stalking her, driven by the need to regain control over Dave and his life. In late January or early February, this kind of timeline is a little mushy from what I can find. Dave made the difficult decision, but calculated, to move in with Amy, the mother of his children, not just for companionship, but to shield her and her kids from this unsettling chaos that Liz had brought into their lives. For years, Liz's obsession with Dave had spiraled into this erratic, dangerous behavior, putting everyone he cared at risk. Dave hoped that the move would provide Amy and the children with some safety, like that feeling of, okay, he got us, while also giving the police a chance to turn the tide in their investigation. Now, this move wasn't just for protection, but it was carefully planned as a strategic move between Dave and the investigators. Now, the investigators saw it as an opportunity to provoke Liz, see how far her obsession with Dave would drive her and what she might reveal into the desperation to control. They suspected Liz would have a strong reaction and be unable to resist the need to reassert herself into his life. Now, I want to say right here, Dave didn't know that they thought that she was involved in the murder. They just knew, he just knew that something was going on with Liz and they were trying to collect more information. Now, Liz did not disappoint. Within a few days of learning about Dave's move, her behavior escalated dramatically. She began contacting the police, inciting and demanding why Amy hadn't been arrested for the shooting. She claimed that she received new and more aggressive emails and texts from Amy, messages full of threat and shocking omissions. These messages, Liz claimed, included confession to Cari Farver's murder, the arson of Liz's home, and even the shooting that wounded Liz herself. The emails described gruesome details of Cari's death, with too many things that seemed like you had to be there. They included things like Cari had been stabbed in her car during a violent confrontation. Her body had been wrapped in a tarp, burned and disposed of in the trash. Her car was cleaned, erased of any trace of the crime. The killer had assumed Cari's identity, sending emails and texts to her loved ones, creating this illusion that she was alive. Things that were happening. And one of the emails even described the interior of Cari's home, revealing some details like proof that the sender had been there. Liz insisted that these were from Amy. This was proof of her guilt. But investigators knew better. By this time, they were certain Liz was not only behind the stalking and harassment, but also behind Cari's murder. Now certain that they had their smoking gun, investigators decided it was time to confront Dave with the truth. They drove to the auto shop where he worked, and the weight of their heaviness in the air it sparked that something was going on. They explained that Liz had been behind the years of harassment, stalking, and even the arson that upended his life. And Dave stood still, his expression shifting from confusion to disbelief. The words felt surreal, almost like they were meant for someone else. Liz, the woman he shared part of his life with, the same woman who was presented as someone that was in this torment with him, that she was a victim. Dave excused himself and walked to the back of the shop where his toolbox sat, a sturdy, very familiar anchor in the world that suddenly felt unrecognizable. Leaning heavily against it, he buried his face in his hands and let the tears come. His mind raced, trying to fix the jagged pieces into this puzzle together, and memories flashed. Liz's constant presence, her dramatic accounts of being harassed, the uncanny way that she always seemed to know when to show up. It was all her. She had been stalking him and waving these lies and playing the victim while terrorizing everyone he cared about. It was Liz the whole time, he whispered to himself. It hit him like a tidal wave. It wasn't just betrayal. It was the unthinkable manipulation of his life, his trust, and his grief over Cari's disappearance. The investigators gave him a moment to process, standing by but silent, understanding the magnitude of what they just revealed to him. For Dave, it wasn't just it was this mindfuck of epic proportions, a devastating truth that reframed years of his life in an instant. In February of 2016, armed with warrants, investigators conducted thorough searches of Liz's apartment, the residence that she shared with Todd. The searches unearthed several items of interest from her apartment, including an LG cell phone, a Coolpix digital camera, a red Sony camcorder, and memory cards. Among these was a black and white floral shower curtain, identical to the one purchased using Cari's debit card just days before her disappearance. In March of 2016, investigators searched a storage unit containing belongings to Cari's house. Her mother moved things there slowly after the disappearance when it was confirmed that she wasn't coming back. They just knew. Inside, they found receipts and owner manuals for the Nikon camera, the Sony camcorder, proving that Cari had purchased these items back in October of 2012, shortly before she vanished. Meanwhile, digital evidence continued to pile up in this case. Data retrieved from her cell phone in January of 2013 revealed 6 calls made to Cari's landline on November 6 and 7, 2012, just days before Cari was last seen. Investigators also uncovered pictures of Cari's Ford Explorer taken on Christmas Eve, 2012, weeks after her disappearance, but before the vehicle was found near Dave's apartment in January of 2013. Metadata tied the photo directly to Liz's phone. Additionally, the phone contained a video that was uploaded to YouTube under an account by Cari's name. I know that's a little complex, but it was basically a video that kind of had a background of Dave's apartment complex. The account was created in 2014, though, long after Cari went missing, and was accessing the IP address that was lead to Todd's residence. So it's like she was trying to collect data or information or like things that, oh, this is Cari, and post them publicly so people would see them. Because again, she was alive on social media, but not alive in person. Now, Cari's Ford Explorer itself had initially been found in Omaha in 2013, if you remember from part 1. At the time, a crime scene technician noted that the vehicle was unusually clean. Not only was it unusually clean, they were only able to retrieve one fingerprint, which again was Liz's. This was identified in 2015 from the mint container. This connection, combined with the mounting amount of evidence that they were getting, solidified their suspicions about her involvement in the disappearance, and they turned their attention back to the vehicle. So again, from that email, it was saying that she was killed in her car, stabbed, all of this. And this is where they found a significant clue. There was blood under the fabric cover of the passenger seat. Although they had not found her body yet, the blood, coupled with a growing amount of evidence, gave them the leverage they needed to arrest Liz. As the investigation started to deepen, the pressure mounted. They felt like they didn't have enough evidence that was going to be hard, cold evidence and facts. The prosecutor was a little worried because Liz presented herself as this victim through the entire process. She was the one being stalked. Her house burned down. She was shot. All of these things. And it was this frustration that they knew they needed more. They knew they needed solid evidence to make their case ironclad. And with a little bit of hope and a little bit of determination, they decided they were going to reach out to Dave again. Now, he had to have some electronics, something that hasn't been examined yet. He was with both of these women. And Dave remembered he had an old tablet stored in a unit, and the device was examined. Now, forensic expert Anthony discovered something very pivotal and a little like, why didn't they find this before? If police would have just taken this case seriously, they would have been justice a long time ago. Now, when he went through this research, there was 11,000 deleted photos on this SIM card. Among these images were ones of Liz taking selfies around the time that kind of Cari went missing, but he quickly was sorting through these, like, okay, let me look at this thumbnail, and one image stood out above the rest. It was a photo of a human foot that had a tattoo of a Chinese character for the word mother. Now, Nancy, Cari's mother, sadly immediately recognized the tattoo, and it belonged to her daughter. Further investigation by medical examiners confirmed that the foot in the photo belonged to a deceased individual, solidifying that there was a growing suspicion that Cari had met a tragic end. These findings added critical weight to the case against Liz. She had already been linked to the crime through her phone records, Cari's car, the search of her apartment, all of these pieces, and they were all kind of coming together. And this brought them just a little bit more to that truth and bringing justice for Cari. On December 22nd, 2016, Liz was initially charged with only first-degree murder in the case of Cari Farver. Her arraignment, she pleaded not guilty, and surprisingly, she requested to waive her right to a jury trial. The court ensured that she understood what her constitutional right was to have a jury trial and explained the potential consequences of waiving it. But she confirmed this was her decision, and she was going to agree with her attorney, and she was not swayed in any way. Liz waived her right to a jury trial, and then they proceeded with the bench trial. So, if you're not familiar with that, she's waiving the right of her peers to come in, listen to the evidence, and decide, and everything's going to be just to the judge. During the trial, Liz didn't testify in her defense, and after the state rested, her defense team moved for a direct motion of acquittal that the court overruled. The defense chose not to present any evidence, and in December of 2017, Liz was formally charged with murder. Her defense team continued to dispute whether murder had even occurred, citing the absence of the body. However, the judge found the evidence presented during the trial to be overwhelming. The judge declared that it was proven beyond a reasonable doubt that Liz had intentionally killed Cari with delicate and premeditated malice on or around about November 13th, 2012 in Douglas County, Nebraska. As a result, Liz was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole, in addition to 20 years for arson. In 2018, Liz appealed her conviction, hoping for a new trial or a reduction of her sentence. However, it was rejected. The court upheld the original verdict. Despite her conviction, Liz remains kind of saying she's innocent. In letters sent from prison, she continued to insinuate, "I will not stop fighting until I'm set free and they find the right person." This was in a book in 2020 called A Tangled Web by Leslie Rule. In the book, Leslie talks about how Liz showed zero remorse for her actions. She doesn't take responsibility for what happened. And the cold-hearted nature of Liz's actions, it was evident. She manipulated Cari's family. Cari's father, Jim, reflected back to this lack of remorse that Liz displayed in the years that this was going on. When Cari's son Max reached out to Cari, or who he thought was Cari, on Facebook to see if it was real, her father says, "I don't know how someone doesn't just break down, like how that doesn't break someone's heart." But it didn't affect her one bit. She didn't care that she was hurting Cari's mom or her son or anything, not one bit of remorse. Nancy, Cari's mom, also credited Jim, Ryan, and Tony for their help in maintaining her sanity through this entire ordeal. "They will always be my boys," she said. "They're fantastic at what they do. If it had not been for them, I'd still be in the dark now." Which is true. The police weren't taking this case seriously. She had to have these outside sources come in to help her. Now, Dave, Cari's former boyfriend, and Liz's former boyfriend, described that this left a lasting impact on him. "Liz ruined his life," he told People, "as much as you can without actually killing him." Dave spent years believing Cari was out to get him, only to learn that she had been dead all along and the woman he trusted was responsible for her murder. It's still hard to process now. Dave is 47 years old and lives with his girlfriend in Nebraska, and he's very cautious. He says, "It's not hard to see why I don't trust anybody anymore. I keep my walls up." Liz never revealed the whereabouts of Cari's body, and as a result, Cari's remains have never been discovered, leaving this final chapter kind of unsolved. Her family was never able to put her to rest, and that's something that they think about a lot. And that brings us to the end of another unsettling tale. As always, thank you for listening to Murder by Nature. If you've enjoyed tonight's episode, leave us a rating or review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you're listening from. And be sure to come back next Thursday for a brand new story that will keep you up at night. Until then, I'm Jasmine Ramirez, reminding you to stay vigilant, stay safe, and remember, don't get murdered, or for the love of all things dark, don't become the murderer. You've been warned.